Trump ends hostilities with the Iranians for now. What do we grade him? Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America. Well, got a message from a bunch of people. Said Trump delivered a statement. He was going to deliver a statement last night. He paused, and he's delivering one today. So I haven't seen it. I'm a little bit late. Sorry about that. But it looks like we're ending the current little hostile thingamajiggy with Iran. Let's see if that's actually what happened. So we're just going to watch and comment on the speech, and then that'll be it.
As long as I'm President of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Good morning. I'm pleased to inform you the American people should be extremely grateful and happy. No Americans were harmed in last night's attack by the Iranian regime. We suffered no casualties. All of our soldiers are safe, and only minimal damage was sustained at our military bases. Our great American forces are prepared for anything. Iran appears to be standing down, which is a good thing for all parties concerned and a very good thing for the world. No American or Iraqi lives were lost because of the precautions taken, the dispersal of forces, and an early warning system that worked very well. I salute the incredible skill and courage of America's men and women in uniform. For far too long, all the way back to 1979 to be exact, nations have tolerated Iran's destructive and destabilizing behavior in the Middle East and beyond. Those days are over.
Okay, so I'm not going to say I'm a fortune teller or anything like that, but you guys do remember last week when everybody was freaking out talking about World War III. I said there's going to be no World War III. I don't even think there's going to be a battle with Iran. I said they were going to throw out some bluster and threats, and they weren't going to do anything. They knew good and well that launching 12 missiles at us was not going to do a damn thing. They knew it. We knew it. They know our capabilities. They had 100,000 Shia militants there, all young and hot-blooded males who were ready to go to jihad. The Iranians did not activate them to go after us. They sent some missiles, which they knew very well we would not get hit by. I mean, shoot. Send mortars. You'd actually be able to do more damage with a mortar team on site than you would with missiles. They knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted no parts of America. They wanted no parts of a skirmish with America. That's obvious. So I'm not going to sit here and put a feather in my cap. I don't think you have to be that intelligent to realize that people in power like being in power. And I don't know if you guys remember at the beginning of the Arab Spring, there were protests at the street level by Iranian youth. And one of those Iranian youth got shot and killed in the street right in front of her father. And her name was Neda Sultan. And she was killed on camera by your man Soleimani, by the way. All the people crying about Soleimani and oh, we shouldn't. This guy killed his own people. It was his Special Forces Brigade that sniped this girl and killed her right in front of her father for daring to protest. So anyway, the point is people in power like to stay in power. The fact of the matter is the Iranians have had a long history of poking the bear and testing us to see whether or not we had the resolve to do anything about it, and they made a mistake here. They made a tactical error here. Mr. Trump is not like your standard politician, obviously. And so Trump sent a message, and they responded by blinking and standing down and realizing that they don't If they went after us, they would lose power, which is what's obviously most important to these people. Clearly. I have to chuckle about Mr. Trump talking about how the Iranians in 1979 have been a force of destabilization in the Middle East. The fact that he said that with a straight face is, you got to give it to him for his discipline. Do you know which country in the last 20 years has done more for the destabilization of the Middle East than the Iranians? That's right. That would be us. Us as in us, and us as in US, as in the United States. It started in the invasion of Iraq. And you can include Afghanistan in there as well, because all we really needed to do was get bin Laden. We've stayed there. We've completely destroyed that entire country. Not to mention our participation thanks to Mr. Obama. So Bush did the Iraq invasion, and then he handed off the baton, and then Mr. Obama went off and took the ground running, and along with the CIA and Miss Hillary, we saw, we killed in Clinton, participated in the Arab Spring, which has resulted in the upheaval in Egypt, upheaval in Libya, which actually reinstated the slave trade, which affected Africans, obviously. So now you got African slaves literally being sold at the market in Libya. Thank you very much, Mr. Obama. But the Democrats are the party of the black man, that's right. And then we had the incursion in Syria, which gave rise to Jabhat al-Nusra, Ansar al-Sharia, Al-Qaeda, which then gave rise to ISIS, which we all know what happened in Syria and Iraq. This is not a Democrat-Republican thing. This is not a left-right thing. Both of these establishment parties have been involved in destabilizing the Middle East in a way more significant role than the Iranians ever could. So the fact that he said that with a straight face is amazing to me. But, let's continue.
Iran has been the leading sponsor of terrorism, and their pursuit of nuclear weapons threatens the civilized world. We will never let that happen. Last week, we took decisive action to stop a ruthless terrorist from threatening American lives. At my direction, the United States military eliminated the world's top terrorist, Qasem Soleimani. As the head of the Quds Force, Soleimani was personally responsible for some of the absolutely worst atrocities. He trained terrorist armies, including Hezbollah, launching terrorist strikes against civilian targets. He fueled bloody civil wars all across the region. He viciously wounded and murdered thousands of U.S. troops, including the planting of roadside bombs that maim and dismember their victims. Soleimani directed the recent attacks on U.S. personnel in Iraq that badly wounded 4 service members and killed 1 American, and he orchestrated the violent assault on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. In recent days, he was planning new attacks on American targets, but we stopped him. Soleimani's hands were drenched in both American and Iranian blood. He should have been terminated long ago. By removing Soleimani, we have sent a powerful message to terrorists. If you value your own life, you will not threaten the lives of our people. As we continue to evaluate options in response to Iranian aggression, the United States will immediately impose additional punishing economic sanctions on the Iranian regime. These powerful sanctions will remain until Iran changes its behavior.
I really am not a fan of sanctions. Sanctions are not going to hurt the power class in Iran. It's not going to hurt the Ayatollah. It's not going to hurt the ruling class in Iran. It's going to hurt street-level Iranians like Nada, who died trying to get freedom for her country. Why can't we simply say, we took the guy out, now you know we're serious, we're not playing games with you, let's try to start fresh. You threw the missiles, you knew good and well that you weren't going to touch us, which means you blinked, you backed down, fine. Now that we have this square, let's get to the table and actually talk. Why do we have to impose sanctions on these people? You know, Abby Martin says that sanctions are actually an act of war. Now, to me, acts of war are extremely specific. So I disagreed with Tulsi when she called the Soleimani killing an act of war. But I will say that I don't believe that sanctions are an act of war either. But I will say that sanctions are much closer to an act of war than killing that guy would be. Killing that guy affects one guy and maybe their org chart in the military. Sanctions affects the entire country and the non-ruling class of the country. Why do we have to do that? Now, on the one hand, I'm very happy that Mr. Trump had all this bluster and he said, if you went after any U.S. asset or anything like that on Twitter, we're going to come back and hit you fast and hard, yada, yada, yada. So I'm glad that at that level, Trump has sort of backed down from that rhetoric and backtracked himself from that. Okay, so on that hand, good job. But why do we have to initiate another round of sanctions on these people? What have they done differently? What did they do 2 weeks ago that was different than today? Soleimani went off and did whatever he did. We killed him. Okay, it's square. He killed one of our guys. By the way, the person that he killed was a naturalized U.S. citizen born in Iraq. Okay? For all the... look, man, Trump went to war and killed this dude for a naturalized U.S. citizen named Narez Hamid, who was born in Iraq. He was an Iraqi. So, the irony of all of that, Trump kills this very important guy for the sake of an immigrant should not be lost. But on top of that, it's important to mention the guy's name because all we heard about is Soleimani, and we haven't heard the name of the individual who actually died in the strike. So, rest in peace to him and his family and comfort for them. So often, people like that just get completely thrown to the wayside because the major players are what everybody's concerned about. We're missing the human element. So rest in peace to him. Condolences to his family. Genuinely, seriously. But why we have to go and now punish the Iranian populace makes absolutely no sense to me. And honestly is an unjust practice. And I think that Americans really need to dig into what sanctions actually do to people and the effect that they have for generations on a country. It's not like you can say, I'm putting a 2-week sanction on you and then everything resets and goes back to normal. You're talking about really messing with the infrastructure of these countries who are completely dependent on the EU, the UN, and the United States for their survival. And I think sanctions are preferable, obviously, to nuclear war, but I also think, like I said, we already squared the deal. One guy for one guy. So why do we need to impose sanctions on these people? I don't get it. As far as him saying this dude should have been eliminated previously, well, again, as a Christian, I'm never going to call for the death of anyone. However, from a secular perspective, the question has to be asked, if this guy was as nasty and as horrible and as everybody, Democrat and Republican, is saying, then why in the world did we not act on him? And the obvious answer is the difference between him and bin Laden and al-Baghdadi, as some folks in the comment section have already pointed out, is that this guy is an actual member of the state, and so it could be construed as an act of war, and we didn't want a war with Iran. And quite frankly, to be honest with you, I don't think Obama was the type of guy to take that action anyway, because Obama did not have the fortitude to make these guys blink the way that Trump has. Do you think that what they did with our sailors a couple years back in 2016 would happen now? I don't think so. I don't think they do that now. So the answer to that, Mr. Trump, is yeah, he meant, from a secular perspective, he probably should have been eliminated, but Obama was not the guy for that to happen.
In recent months alone, Iran has seized ships in international waters, fired an unprovoked strike on Saudi Arabia, and shot down 2 U.S. drones. Iran's hostilities substantially increased after the foolish Iran nuclear deal was signed in 2013. and they were given $150 billion, not to mention $1.8 billion in cash. Instead of saying thank you to the United States, they chanted death to America. In fact, they chanted death to America the day the agreement was signed. Then Iran went on a terror spree, funded by the money from the deal, and created hell in Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, Afghanistan, and Iraq. The missiles fired last night at us and our allies were paid for with the funds made available by the last administration. The regime also greatly tightened the reins on their own country, even recently killing 1,500 people at the many protests that are taking place all throughout Iran.
Okay, first of all, the Iranians and the Saudis are having a proxy war in Yemen. So to say that they're attacking the Saudis unprovoked is ridiculous. The Saudis are basically, I don't want to, I'm not going to say genocide, but they're, let's say it this way, they're making life unlivable for folks in Yemen right now. And we're in Yemen, by the way. This is all open source. You don't need to have special access to know this. One of the first death group operations that Mr. Trump approved was the one that killed Anwar al-Awlaki's daughter in Yemen. We had operations in Yemen. By the way, Anwar al-Awlaki is the individual that Mr. Obama, the United States citizen that Mr. Obama killed, extrajudicially, by the way. And then 2 months later, we killed his 16-year-old son, Abdul Rahman. And then when he was asked, when he was confronted with what threat this 16-year-old Yemeni kid posed to us, he wouldn't answer the question. And then Mr. Trump, remember, these guys are passing the baton to each other. Mr. Trump then took the baton and then killed his, I think, 9-year-old daughter. Yeah. So we were in Yemen, and Yemen and the Saudis and the Iranians are having this Sunni Shia proxy war. For him to say that they've unleashed hell in Lebanon, etc., hello, let me explain again. ISIS is a Sunni Salafist outfit who the number one enemy of ISIS is not America, it's not even Israel. The number one enemy of ISIS are Shia. That's why all these conspiracy theorists, why isn't ISIS going into Israel, yada, 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 yada. Because if you know anything about the Sunni Shia struggle, especially the Salafist version of Sunniism, or Wahhabi, whatever you want to call it, their number one enemy are Shia. That's a fact. Those are the people that they want dead more than anybody on the planet. And so it just so happens that Hezbollah and the Iranians are Shia. And so when the Sunni Salafists in ISIS were taking over the region, yes, they went to war in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, but that's when they were fighting ISIS, Mr. Trump. You cannot say that the Iranians were funding quote-unquote terrorism in the Middle East when they were fighting the same people that we were fighting. So then were we funding terrorism in Iraq, Iraq, Libya, Egypt, Iran, Yemen, Niger, all these places where we're taking direct action because we're killing terrorists and Sunni Salafist terrorists? Are we supporting? This is a completely dishonest. Yes, the Iranians are in the middle. That we're in the middle of all this stuff for the past 5 to 10 years, but that had nothing to do with terrorism in the sense that they're just randomly going out and doing stuff. They were trying to take out Salafist Sunnis who were on a killing spree. And at that level, we're thankful for them. They did the right thing in that situation as far as American interests go. This stuff is just crazy to me. That it's as if this guy, Mr. Trump, and you know, I want to be respectful, he's a president, but Mr. Trump, we're not dumb. When you mention in the last X amount of years, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, we know who was fighting in theater in that place. We know who was, and there's nobody. I think Jimmy Dore says we're in like 15 different proxy wars all over the world. We're in Yemen, we're in Niger, we're all over the place. So this is the stuff that kills me, man. It kills me. It's so frustrating Good night. You don't have to go this way to convince people that we did the right thing to take out the Soleimani guy, or to say that the Iranians are bad actors. Here's the accurate way to say it. In the last 5 years, the Iranians at times have been coincident with us, and we've been co-belligerents with them. I know for a fact that we had American assets working side by side with Hezbollah. That's a fact. In Syria and Iraq. That's a fact. So now Mr. Trump's going to look us in the face and tell us that these guys they've been doing stuff all over the world. As if none of us can think in any sort of nuanced fashion, Mr. Trump. No. What they're doing in Yemen is absolutely horrible to those kids. Okay? They're effectively, I'm talking about the Saudis now, who are this is the other thing that kills me. The Saudis are making life a living hell over there. And we're doing nothing at all to rebuke these people or anything like that. We are supporting a terrorist regime. The Saudis kidnapped Khashoggi. Now, I'm not going to make a comparison between Khashoggi and what just happened in Iraq. But the fact still stands. They took an American citizen, they killed him, they dismembered him, obviously. They're doing all this craziness in Yemen. So if America was righteously going to eradicate terrorism from the Middle East, then we would be going after the Saudis. Mr. Trump, why can't you just say, look, when people asked him about the Khashoggi situation, you know what he said? He said, look, man, we're in the middle of a giant arms deal with these people. Fine, tell us the truth. But don't sit there and act like we're the righteous ones in the Middle East and we don't promote terrorism or whatever. The fact of the matter is, the only reason you didn't like Iranian, quote, terrorism or terrorism sponsorship is that at times they go against us. That's all. That's it. Stop with this stuff. Like, we're not dumb. Good night. And one thing I cannot stand on the left or the right is when people try to insult our intelligence. We're not dumb, Mr. Trump.
The very defective JCPOA expires shortly anyway, and gives Iran a clear and quick path to nuclear breakout. Iran must abandon its nuclear ambitions and end its support for terrorism. The time has come for the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Russia, and China to recognize this reality. They must now break away from the remnants of the Iran deal, or JCPOA. And we must all work together toward making a deal with Iran that makes the world a safer and more peaceful place.
I agree with him about the JCPOA. Look, the JC, and by the way, the six, when he called out Britain, France, China, Germany, and Russia, those were the six powers in 2013, November 23rd, where they all got together, had a discussion, and et cetera, and that was the precursor to the actual deal that was signed in 2015. Once again, for all the Russia conspiracy people, I'm failing to see where Mr. Trump is in the back pocket of the Russians. He just once again called out the Russians and told them what to do on national TV. I'm sorry, but if you're still doing the Russian narrative stuff, it's just because you're suffering from Trump derangements. And honestly, let it go. Just open your hand and release it. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about, oh, Trump is crazy. Look what the Iranians are doing since the JCPOA. Come on, y'all. This is, again, more insulting of our intelligence. You honestly believe the Iranians were... Look, first of all, he's right. A day or two later, they were chanting death to America on the streets when we signed JCPOA. And that's with your man Obama at the helm. Number two, the sailors were kidnapped and paraded in violation of the Geneva Convention after the signing of the JCPOA. We signed that in 2015. That happened in 2016 under Mr. Obama's watch, where once again he did nothing. Like, literally nothing in response to them doing that. And neither did the international community, by the way. So, this idea, oh man, Trump is... Come on, bruh. The Iranians have done one thing constantly, and look, you can justify it or not justify it, but the fact of the matter is that silly little deal and all the money that we sent those guys, you know, I kind of chuckled where he said that the rockets that they shot at us were funded by the billions that Obama gave him, as if the Iranians had no missiles prior to Obama giving them all that money. None. What a ridiculous thing to say, Mr. Trump. But he's right about this. Any nuclear deal. Look, here are the facts. We are a nuclear power, and it is definitionally hypocritical for Americans at all to tell any other sovereign nation that they cannot develop nuclear arms. Number one, we develop them. Number two, we're the only nation on the planet Earth that has used them twice against cities. We're the only ones. They're going to sign, they're going to do whatever. North Korea is going to do whatever. The Iranians are going to say and do whatever. At the end of the day, depending on who's in power in one of those countries, they're going to measure out the sanctions versus nuclear proliferation issue. This whole situation has actually highlighted why countries like Iran want a nuclear power. It's because we are the biggest bully on the block, and there's nothing even close to us on the block. And when we decide we're going to go after somebody, there's really nothing that these other countries can do to us. So that's why they want a nuclear weapon, to try to find some way to equalize stuff. You got a bunch of dudes and, you got 58 gangsters coming after you and your crew only has 20 people. They're going to get brass knuckles, sticks, guns, whatever they can to try to equalize. That's why other countries on the planet Earth want a nuclear weapon. And there's nothing that's going to stop that. Why? Because of American aggression. We have demonstrated in the last 20 years that if we want to screw with you, we're going to screw with you. And then when you try to defend yourself, we're going to call you a terrorist and call you crazy for actually trying to defend yourself. So, I agree that all this silliness, I'm hearing all these, oh my gosh, Trump pulled out a nuclear deal. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It was ridiculous when Obama signed it and gave all that money. It was ridiculous from the beginning. These people are not friends of the United States, and we're not friends of them. And they're well within their rights to go after nuclear armament. And until America decides that we're going to completely disarm on a nuclear level, then no other country on the planet Earth is going to listen to us until we blackmail them with sanctions. That's all this is. At the end of the day, that's what this comes down to. There is no deal on the planet that any country is going to honor so long as we're the lone superpower and the first nuclear power on the planet Earth. Those are the facts. And you know what? If I was an Iranian or if I was Kim Jong-un, I wouldn't do it either. Would you? If you had some bully on the block that was breaking into everybody's houses and had an M16, and so nobody could match their firepower, and then they knock on your door and they say, "Hey, I heard you're assembling an F-16 back there. You shouldn't be able to do that. And as long as I'm in this neighborhood, you're never going to be able to assemble an M16." Does that make sense to you? Good night.
We must also make a deal that allows Iran to thrive and prosper and take advantage of its enormous untapped potential. Iran can be a great country. Peace and stability cannot prevail in the Middle East as long as Iran continues to foment violence, unrest, hatred, and war. The civilized world must send a clear and unified message to the Iranian regime. Your campaign of terror, murder, mayhem will not be tolerated any longer. It will not be allowed to go forward. Today, I am going to ask NATO to become much more involved in the Middle East process. Over the last 3 years, under my leadership, our economy is stronger than ever before, and America has achieved energy independence. These historic accomplishments change our strategic priorities.
You know, I just wish, because Trump, I really believe that he's got the ability to say things that other presidents don't. if you would just say, let's all meet, let's all the Middle Eastern countries meet, and maybe he's going to talk about Iraq, because they voted for us to get out of their country. So I don't know if he's going to address that. Absolutely, Iran has been a source of unrest, murder, terrorism, and killing and destabilization in the Middle East. But they don't hold a candle to us. Again, a conservative estimate says we have killed 250,000 civilians in Iraq alone. Much less the numbers that we don't know about the proxy wars in Niger, Yemen, Somalia, etc., etc., etc. Why can't we just come on camera and say, we have been a force of destabilization, you've been a force of destabilization, let's talk about the exit strategy in America, and let's see what we can do to create a bright future. On the one hand, you're saying that Iran has all the potential to be this great country, etc., etc. That's great. You said that 10 minutes after you talked about dropping sanctions on these people. Don't you see a contradiction there? I'm glad that you're saying something positive about the Iranians, thank God. But how are we supposed to interpret that when you're talking about imposing sanctions on these people that could cripple them? Now, I don't know the details of the sanctions, but it doesn't make sense to me. And this sort of, why do we as Americans always have to speak from a position of superiority, moral superiority to these people? Why do we have to do that? Why can't we own our stuff? Why can't we say, hey, Iran, you guys have been a destabilizing force in the Middle East. You've killed a lot of innocent people. You and I can relate to each other. How about we come to the thing and you can help us get out of Dodge and we'll help you ingratiate yourself to the international community, namely Europe and America. Like, I think that would go a long way. Again, we took out their guy. We showed that we're serious. They backed down. They blinked. Okay, we're the tough guy on the block. We get it. Now we can actually do something revolutionary here. I don't agree with what Obama did, which was kowtow to these people, give them billions of dollars, and basically portrayed us as being fundamentally weak in the face of their aggression. We don't have to swing the other way, though, and act as if we're morally superior to these people. I just wish for once that we would just lay the cards on the table and be honest. Good night. And so, yeah, I'm glad for the platitudes about a bright future for Iran and all the rest of it. But your actions, Mr. Trump, are not demonstrating that we're going to be able to have a bright future for these people and partner with these people once you put down sanctions on them.
These are accomplishments that nobody thought were possible. And options in the Middle East became available. We are now the #1 producer of oil and natural gas anywhere in the world. We are independent, and we do not need Middle East oil. The American military has been completely rebuilt under my administration at a cost of $2.5 trillion. U.S. armed forces are stronger than ever before. Our missiles are big, powerful, accurate, lethal, and fast. Under construction are many hypersonic missiles. The fact that we have this great military and equipment, however, does not mean we have to use it. We do not want to use it. American strength, both military and economic, is the best deterrent. 3 months ago...
Well, unfortunately, one of the worst things about this entire situation is that it is, as he just articulated, one of the greatest arguments for the military-industrial complex. You'll notice that he says, without shrugging or anything, we spent $2 trillion on our arms. And what kills me is that whenever Bernie Sanders talks about spending trillions for Medicare for All or a student loan forgiveness program, the first thing that I hear from the right is the question, you know the question, how are we going to pay for it? Why is it that Mr. Trump feels so comfortable putting the price tag of $2 trillion on arms when we are already by far the most superior military force on the planet Earth? People have no idea. I had a discussion with a guy people have no idea about the capabilities of the United States military. No idea. We can literally destroy the world 50 times over. This is not me doing rah, rah, rah America stuff. We are literally the most powerful military the earth has literally ever seen in the history of human beings. But it's absolutely crazy. Meanwhile, we've got all these nice supersonic missiles, yada, 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 yada. Meanwhile, we've got people dying at home because they age out of their mother's insurance. And no, I'm never going to stop talking about it. Why in the world? Where are the Republicans saying, whoa, 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 $2 trillion? How are we going to pay for that? Where are you? Unfortunately, on this day, he gets to spike the football, because what this says is, look, the fact that we're so superior militarily resulted in a deterrence from the Iranians. They backed down. And the Iranians have been the tough guy boogeyman. The people, the Iranians have kind of been like a paper tiger. You know, the kid on the block that everybody's scared of, and then somebody gives him an eye jam and he goes home to his mom. That's just what happened here with the Soleimani hit. I get it. So now this is a time in the sun for all the military industrialists to strut about and vindicate themselves. And what I'm saying is we could have done this without spending $2 trillion. I mean, Mr. Trump, you've not even been in here for the entire term, so stop it. You did not completely reorganize and restructure and revive the military. Stop it. We've been the superior military on the planet Earth for damn near 40, 50 years now, Mr. Trump. Now, you've definitely, and like the way that he describes it, bigger, fat, I think he wrote that part himself. Look, I'm not here to insult Trump, I promise you, but this is a day for the military industrialists to spike the football. Good for you. You got it. We spent $2 trillion on arms. And by the way, if you're a Christian and I saw a meme where somebody talked about, we're showing, I'll try to find it. They showed the bomb that we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and then they showed like the capabilities of our current nuclear arsenal, and it dwarfs one by the other. And this is a Christian posting this. Hello, Christians. Do you know that in Daniel chapter 11:38, there's speculation that this is describing the Antichrist, but one of the characteristics of the Antichrist is that he will honor a god of fortresses, a god unknown to his ancestors. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. That's Daniel 11:38. Now, I'm not saying or even implying that Donald Trump is the Antichrist. I'm telling you definitively right now, I do not believe that he is. I believe that was Caesar Nero in the 1st century. However, a god of fortresses, meaning war, meaning a war god, that he will sacrifice gold, silver, precious stones, and costly gifts to the god of war, Mars. And for Christians to be celebrating the fact that we're spending all of our costly stones and gifts and human beings, because you do realize that if you take $2 trillion and don't spend it on healthcare but spending on war, that means the blood of the people that died due to our lack of healthcare also is part of the war chest. And for Christians to celebrate that is beyond me. Daniel 11:38, check it out yourself. This is a side note for my Christian family. I will never understand our predilection toward violence and wholesale killing and the pride that American Christians have in our capabilities to bring down hell on earth, or to raise hell on earth, when we're supposed to be praying, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And I assure you, missiles, atomic weaponry, ICBMs, etc., are not the will of God in heaven for the earth. But, like I said, today is a day for the military industrialists to spike the football. Congratulations. And I get it. I understand. I get it. We continue.
Finally, to the people and leaders of Iran, we want you to have a future, and a great future, one that you deserve. One of prosperity at home and harmony with the nations of the world. The United States is ready to embrace peace with all who seek it. I want to thank you and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. There you go. We want peace. God bless America. We're just going to sanction the hell out of you and make your life miserable for the next 5 to 10 years. But, we want peace. Look, I'm going to try not to be so cynical. He ended it on a positive note for the Iranian people. I was talking to Sori yesterday. I said, I would not be surprised if the Iranians actually just handed this guy over and said, here he is, and that they planned this entire political theater. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happened. I really, really wouldn't. I give Trump a C+ on this entire thing. He clearly won. This is another win for Trump. It's unmistakably another win for Trump. This is going to be a feather in his hat. Look, guys, I keep trying to explain to people. This is the same thing that happens when right-wingers go after AOC and say she's stupid and she's an idiot and all this. You do not get to the level that these people get to by being an idiot. I don't care what you say. The man is not an idiot. He's extremely calculating. What he is doing here is he continues to win. This idea that he's just like impulsive and crazy and all the rest of it, he won here. And so did the military-industrial complex. I think in the long term, we lost. Our chances of getting Medicare for all have just shrunk exponentially because he is using the fear of Iran to basically put in our subconscious that we need to spend trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars on our military. We don't, in order to maintain superiority. We don't need to do that. We don't need to spend all these trillions. About 3 months ago, he talked about how he spent $8 trillion on the Iraq war, which was an unnecessary, illegal, and horrible war. And you'll notice he also didn't talk about us leaving Iran, even though the sovereign people of Iran have voted to get us out of there. So I can't give him even a B because he did not address that. So look, Mr. Trump is a very calculating dude, and as long as folks on the left continue to specifically talking about the establishment media, as long as they continue to spin this yarn that he's an idiot and he doesn't know what he's doing and he's crazy and all that, you go ahead and do it. But I'll tell you something, this stuff right here appeals to Joe Public in America. They're not going to tell you, but listen, it's human nature. You want your country to be superior to others. And unless you've seen face-to-face the carnage and death and destruction that what we're doing in the Middle East does to people, the average American wants American superiority in the world. The average American believes that they're inherently good and that people who oppose them are inherently bad. And when this guy sends a tweet and says, if you touch one American and you do something like that, we're going to blow you off the map, Americans like it. They're going to act like, oh, this is terrible. But when they go in the ballot box, they're going to be like, I can trust him. If I get kidnapped by some Iranian, I believe Trump's going to get me out of there. This is facts. Say what you want. So what I would love is for, look, there's no response here. There's nothing that the Democrats can do to take this win away from this guy. Mortal Kombat style, he got a flawless victory. I mean, he really, really did. And he'll get bonus points if he can get us the hell out of Iraq. Look, my final thoughts on this is, I said from the beginning I didn't think it was going to turn into a full-scale war. I said that the Iranians were going to throw out some bluster in order to save face. Nothing was going to come of it. I did not predict the sanctions. I believe the sanctions are unnecessary. I think they're inhumane. And I feel bad for the Iranian people. I wish the Iranian people, for the last 10 years, they haven't been able to get a break. Now, it's more than the last 10 years, but I'm tracking this since the Arab Spring and things of that nature. Go Google. I was gonna put the video of Nada, but I'm not gonna do that. I was affected very, very deeply because I have two daughters, and I've got one of them who's fiery, who would absolutely be in a protest like that. And to be a father and have your daughter die right in front of you is the worst of all possible scenarios. And I would just think, as an American, love your country. I love America like you wouldn't believe, but there are other people on this planet, and so I would say, I don't know the extent to which Trump is going to impose these sanctions. Maybe the sanction thing is another face-saving mechanism, because Trump said he was going to blow them off the map if they hurt us or any of our assets, and so clearly bombing 2 bases is injuring American assets. But I would just hope that we do not lose our humanity here in our saber rattling. But anyway, when I say love your neighbor, I'm also talking about your Iranian neighbor and your Yemeni neighbor. In the link in the description, I'm actually going to post a link to where you can help the starving children of Yemen. I don't know if you guys saw that picture of that starving child in Yemen. I think that child actually ended up dying. That's directly related to Saudi incursions and horrible things that Saudis are doing over there. And so we can help. We can put our money where our mouth is. I will put the link in that description, so we can actually help these people. That's what I mean by love your neighbor, right? So it's your neighborhood, your city, your county, your state, your country, and your globe. They're all our neighbors. So I don't want to preach, but at the same time, we're not just passive actors who are sitting by and watching stuff happen. We can actually get involved and do something positive for the world. And as long as that something like that can happen, then we can say that something good came out of what we've seen in the last week and a half in the world. And so I would encourage you, even $1 would help. I would encourage you to participate in that, take part in that. Love your neighbor, take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media. Till next time, guys.